Most failed and weirdest cars Ford ever made. Hey there! What do a rolling refrigerator, a frog-eyed coupe, and a truck with Bigfoot decals have in common? They're all part of the most failed and weirdest cars Ford ever made. Ford went from the legendary Model T to some of the weirdest cars ever made? Oh, trust me, Henry Ford might have believed the world only needed the Model T. But history tells us that Ford wasn't afraid to think outside the box, sometimes way too far outside. From bizarre special editions to entire brands that missed the mark, today, we're diving into the most failed and weirdest cars Ford ever made. Did you know Ford even designed cars so odd that they've become punchlines for decades? And here's the twist. You might not even recognize some of these. As we explore these missteps and marvels, we want to hear from you. Which one do you think takes the crown for Ford's weirdest creation? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Muscle Car Masters for more automotive deep dives. Who knows? Your suggestion might feature in a future episode. Ford Bigfoot Cruiser. You get the Ford Bigfoot Cruiser, a truck that was as ambitious as it was flawed. Have you ever heard of a vehicle so rare and peculiar that even collectors today debate its true history? Introduced in 1987, the Bigfoot Cruiser was Ford's attempt to cash in on the monster truck craze sparked by Bob Chandler's iconic Bigfoot, a modified 1974 Ford F-250 that dominated the monster truck world. Available as an option package for the F-150, F-250, F-350, and Ford Ranger, this truck wasn't just about looks, it was about attitude. Sporting 33-inch tires, a 3-inch suspension lift, heavy-duty Monroe shocks, a winch-equipped Warn Enforcer front bumper, and KC off-road lights, it was every enthusiast's dream of owning a miniature monster truck. However, the Bigfoot Cruiser quickly became one of the most failed cars Ford ever made. Why? Safety issues. The oversized tires rubbed against brake lines, lug nuts loosened under stress, and reports of cruise control-related fires sparked a massive recall. Dealerships stripped these trucks of their most distinctive features, tires, lift kits, and lights, to meet safety standards. Out of an estimated 300 to 660 produced, few survived intact, making this truck as elusive as Bigfoot itself. Under the hood, the F-150 and F-250 variants boasted Ford's robust 5.0-liter and 5.8-liter V8 engines, while the Ranger offered a 2.9-liter V6, a nod to off-road capability but still a far cry from a real monster truck. Yet, these engines couldn't save the Bigfoot Cruiser from earning a spot among the weirdest cars Ford ever made, proving that even bold ideas sometimes crash and burn. Ford Mustang II. What happens when an automotive icon undergoes a dramatic transformation? Enter the Ford Mustang II, a car that bridged the gap between muscle car dominance and fuel efficiency. Debuting in 1974, the Mustang II marked a stark departure from the powerhouse Mustangs of the 60s. Built on a Pinto platform, it downsized significantly to cater to fuel-conscious buyers during the oil crisis. Its engine lineup began with a modest 2.3-liter four-cylinder, delivering just 88 horsepower, while the available 2.8-liter V6 bumped the output to 105 horsepower. By 1975, Ford reintroduced a 4.9-liter V8, producing a respectable 140 horsepower, though still a shadow of its predecessor's raw power. While praised for its practicality and awarded Motor Trend's Car of the Year, the Mustang II's performance-oriented image took a hit. Gone were the throaty V8 growls, replaced by efficient engines and a compact frame that left enthusiasts yearning for the original's muscle. Critics dubbed it one of the weirdest cars Ford ever made. with styling that seemed more focused on fuel economy than flair. Despite selling over 1.1 million units, the Mustang II struggled to win the hearts of purists. Yet, it carved its niche as a right car at the right time, offering a glimpse of Ford's adaptability in a changing market. Lincoln Blackwood. Next, we get the Lincoln Blackwood, a vehicle that aimed high but landed in the history books as one of the most failed cars Ford ever produced. But how did this bold gamble become one of the weirdest cars made by Ford? Unveiled in 2002, the Lincoln Blackwood was a luxury pickup with big ambitions. Based on the popular Ford F-150, it featured a 300-horsepower, 5.4-liter V8 engine, a solid performer for the time. However, the Blackwood wasn't built for heavy lifting. Instead of a traditional truck bed, it offered a carpeted stainless steel-lined trunk covered by a power-operated tonneau. And forget hauling lumber. This bed was more suited for tailgating than tough work. Despite its opulent interior, borrowed from the Lincoln Navigator, the Blackwood suffered from serious flaws. It was only available in rear-wheel drive, and its $52,000 price tag couldn't compete with the more practical and affordable Cadillac Escalade EXT, which offered four-wheel drive and a larger V8 engine. Limited practicality and poor timing also hurt the Blackwood. Launched when economic uncertainty loomed, it only sold 3,356 units before being discontinued in under 15 months. Today, this short-lived experiment stands as a symbol of ambition gone awry, a niche luxury truck that found few takers. Ford Flex. What do you get when you mix a minivan, a wagon, and an SUV? Enter the Ford Flex, a vehicle so distinctively quirky that it's earned its place among the weirdest cars Ford ever made. Introduced in 2008 as a 2009 model, the Ford Flex was anything but ordinary. Its bold rectangular design, reminiscent of a rolling refrigerator, polarized buyers. Yet, beneath its unconventional exterior lay a spacious and versatile interior. Powered by a standard 3.5-liter Duratec V6 producing 262 horsepower, it offered reliable performance. However, for those craving more power, Ford introduced the EcoBoost version in 2010. This turbocharged 3.5-liter V6 delivered an impressive 355 horsepower and transformed the Flex into a surprisingly quick people mover. While it boasted advanced features like active park assist, a panoramic sunroof, and even a built-in refrigerator in higher trims, the Flex never found a strong foothold. Averaging just 25,000 sales annually over its 10-year run, its niche appeal couldn't sustain production. By 2019, the Flex was quietly discontinued, cementing its legacy as one of the weirdest cars Ford designed. Ford Pinto Cruising Wagon. Introduced in 1977, the Cruising Wagon was Ford's attempt to revive interest in the aging Pinto platform. With its bold disco-era graphics, bubble porthole windows, and shag-carpeted rear interior, this two-door wagon screamed 1970s swagger. Under the hood, it offered two engine choices: a 2.3-liter inline-4 engine producing 88 to 89 horsepower, or an optional 2.8-liter V6 with 93 horsepower. While neither engine provided thrilling performance, they delivered modest fuel efficiency, which was critical during the post-oil crisis era. Ford marketed the Cruising Wagon as an affordable, youth-oriented vehicle inspired by the custom van movement. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to reignite Pinto sales, with only around 10,000 sold in 1977 and fewer each year thereafter. By 1980, with the Pinto's discontinuation, the Cruising Wagon became a rare relic of its time. Today, The Ford Pinto Cruising Wagon is a nostalgic curiosity, offering a glimpse into one of Ford's boldest and strangest experiments. Merkur. What happens when a European hatchback is reimagined to compete with luxury icons like BMW? You get the Merkur XR4Ti. Introduced in 1985 under the newly created Merkur brand, the XR4Ti was a rebranded Ford Sierra XR4i designed for the U.S. market. It featured a turbocharged 2.3-liter inline-4 engine borrowed from the Mustang SVO, delivering 175 horsepower with the 5-speed manual or 145 horsepower with the 3-speed automatic. Paired with rear-wheel drive and McPherson struts, it promised a sporty ride. However, its soft suspension, lack of an intercooler, and subpar brakes left enthusiasts underwhelmed. The XR4Ti's unique styling, including a double spoiler and aerodynamic design, was polarizing. Adding to its struggles was the Merkur brand itself, a name Americans struggled to pronounce. It's Merkur. Sold through Lincoln Mercury dealerships, the XR4Ti was priced near luxury competitors but lacked their refinement. By 1989, only 42,464 units were sold, making it one of the weirdest cars Ford ever made. Ford Mercury Breezeway. The Mercury Breezeway, a series of cars from the 1960s that featured one of the weirdest ideas Ford ever made: a retractable rear window with a reverse slant roofline. Debuting on the 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser and later reintroduced in 1963, the Breezeway was a bold attempt to set Mercury apart from Ford. The concept was simple: open the rear window to create a fresh airflow through the cabin, all while staying dry thanks to the roof's overhang. Standard models came with a 390 cubic inch V8 engine producing 250 horsepower, while optional upgrades boosted performance up to 425 horsepower with Ford's rare 427 engine, making these hefty cars surprisingly quick for their size. Despite its clever design and strong sales of over 92,000 units in 1963, the Breezeway's reverse slant roof quickly fell out of favor. Complaints about exhaust fumes entering the cabin and the growing popularity of air conditioning made the feature obsolete. By 1968, Mercury quietly discontinued the Breezeway, leaving it as a fascinating yet odd footnote in Ford's history. Ford Thunderbird. Enter the 11th generation Ford Thunderbird, a retro-styled two-seater that aimed to recapture the magic of its 1950s predecessor. Launched in 2002, the Thunderbird borrowed heavily from its heritage, featuring a two-seat layout, round headlights, and a removable hardtop reminiscent of the 1955 original. Beneath its sleek retro exterior, it shared its Do-98 platform with the Lincoln LS and Jaguar S-Type, ensuring a solid foundation. Powering the T-Bird was a Jaguar C-sourced 3.9-liter V8, producing 252 horsepower and paired with a 5-speed automatic transmission. While its smooth ride and near 50-50 weight distribution made it a pleasant cruiser, it couldn't compete with sportier rivals like the BMW Z4 or Mazda Miata. Despite its nostalgic charm, the Thunderbird faced criticism for its hefty $35,000 starting price and an interior that felt out of place. Intended to be a personal luxury car, its toy-like design and impracticality alienated buyers. Sales peaked in 2002 but dwindled by 2005, forcing Ford to discontinue the model. Today, it remains a polarizing figure, a retro misfire that failed to replicate its past glory. Ford Probe. Have you ever considered the Ford Probe? It's one of those cars with a name you can't ignore. Back in the day, Ford might have hoped buyers would associate it with sleek space probes. But today, it's hard not to think, "Yo, nuts, it's probing time." Before its production debut, the name Probe had already graced several Ford concept cars. By 1989, the Ford Probe hit the streets as a futuristic, aerodynamic liftback coupe co-developed with Mazda. Built on the Mazda MX-6 platform, the Probe offered three engine options: a 2.2-liter inline-4 with 110 horsepower, a turbocharged version producing 145 horsepower, and a second-gen 2.5-liter V6 packing 164 horsepower. Its front-wheel drive layout and sharp handling earned it a reputation for reliability and even a spot on Car and Driver's 10 Best list multiple times. However, it was originally intended to replace the Mustang, a decision that enraged loyal fans due to the lack of a V8 and rear-wheel drive. Ford ultimately kept the Mustang, leaving the Probe to find its place. By 1997, with dwindling sales and less than 20,000 units sold in its final year, the Probe quietly disappeared, remembered as a bold but flawed experiment. Ford Edsel. What happens when a car meant to revolutionize the industry ends up as a cautionary tale? Enter the Ford Edsel, one of the weirdest cars Ford ever made, and arguably one of the most infamous flops in automotive history. Unveiled in 1957 with unprecedented fanfare, the Edsel had its own brand division and a budget of $250 million, a staggering investment at the time. Buyers could choose from a range of V8 engines, including a 3.7-liter, 4.8-liter, or the powerful 5.9-liter, paired with either a 3-speed manual or automatic transmission. Models like the Ranger, Corsair, and Citation featured futuristic innovations, including aircraft-inspired gauges and a teletouch push-button gear selector mounted on the steering wheel. However, the car's defining feature, the horse-collar grille, proved polarizing, with some comparing it to a toilet seat. Launching during a recession, the Edsel was priced out of reach for buyers seeking smaller, economical vehicles like the VW Beetle. Poor quality control also plagued early models, with issues like leaking trunks, wiring failures, and incomplete cars being shipped to dealers. By 1960, the Edsel brand was discontinued, costing Ford millions and cementing its reputation as one of the most failed cars Ford ever produced. Ford EXP and Mercury LN7. What happens when a car maker tries to combine sporty aspirations with economy-class limitations? Well, just look at the front end. Introduced in 1982, the Ford EXP was based on the North American Ford Escort platform. It was the same size as a two-door Escort, but lacked a back seat, making it a two-seater hatchback. Ford envisioned the EXP as the perfect car for young single buyers looking for an affordable and economical sports car. But instead of sporty flair, the EXP sported a bizarre frog-eyed front-end design, with round headlamps that made it stand out, for all the wrong reasons. Under the hood, the EXP offered modest performance, starting with a 1.6-liter inline-4 engine, producing just 70 horsepower. Later models saw slight improvements, with a 1.9-liter engine pushing up to 106 horsepower. Mercury's version, the LN7, featured a slightly different rear window design, but sold even fewer units than the EXP. By 1985, Ford revamped the EXP to look more like the Escort, but the changes weren't enough to attract buyers. Rising insurance costs for two-seaters and the growing popularity of mid-engine sports cars sealed its fate, leading to its discontinuation in 1989. Ford Taurus. What happens when a top-selling car goes too far in trying to stay ahead of the curve? Meet the Ford Taurus, When the Taurus debuted in 1986, its sleek, rounded design revolutionized American car styling. Dubbed a jelly bean car, the first-generation Taurus was a massive hit, even earning a starring role in RoboCop. However, by the third generation, Ford doubled down on the rounded theme, creating a car that many felt was all ovals. The design extended everywhere: the grille, rear window, dashboard, and even the radio controls. The wagon version went further, adding oval rear windows that polarized buyers. Under the hood, the third-gen Taurus came with a 3.0-liter Vulcan V6 producing 145 horsepower, while higher trims offered a 3.4-liter DOHC V8 in the Edsel model, delivering 235 horsepower. Despite the performance boost, the car's design alienated traditional buyers, and aftermarket parts manufacturers struggled to adapt to its unconventional shapes. And there you have it, our picks for the most failed and weirdest cars Ford ever made. From the frog-eyed Ford EXP to the ambitious but flawed Bigfoot Cruiser and the polarizing third-generation Taurus, Ford's history is filled with bold experiments that didn't always hit the mark. Whether it was a luxury truck with no real bed, a futuristic Mustang replacement that alienated fans, or the infamous Pinto Cruising Wagon with its disco-era quirks, these cars prove that even giants like Ford sometimes take a wrong turn. But here's the big question: which of these Ford flops deserves a second chance, and which ones should stay forgotten? Did we miss any weird or failed Fords you think should have made the list? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this ride through Ford's quirkiest moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Muscle Car Masters for more automotive oddities and muscle car legends. See you next time.